there, I'm Chef Mike Harris, Lead Culinary Food Development Specialist.
And I'm Charles Purcell. I'm the Food Industry Senior Application Development Manager for North America.
Today, we're going to explore the world of oat-based dairy alternatives. We are very excited to share this webinar with you. We hope you find it informative and relevant. Here's our agenda for today's webinar. First, we're going to start with a safety share. Then we're going to talk about plant-based milk market trends. We'll then go ahead and discuss functional ingredients in oat-based beverage systems, as well as do a market review of existing products. We'll talk a little bit about enzymes for oat-based milk alternatives, and then we're going to have a little fun in the kitchen with oat milk. Here at Univar Solutions, we are serious about safety, so we always begin with a safety share. Our newest culinary center operates as if we are a fully functioning restaurant. This means our food safety programs and processes are in line with national sanitation requirements. This also means that when we prepare samples for customers to taste, we must wear hats and facial hair coverings when appropriate, use gloves when handling ready-to-eat foods, and accurately maintain and record safe food handling temperatures, making sure our food is safe for you.
Thanks, Chef Mike. Great safety share. Now let's talk briefly about trends in the plant-based dairy alternative space. Plant-based foods are fast-growing in popularity around the world. This is propelled by the rise of flexitarians. 1 in 5 people fit the definition of a flexitarian, whose diet centers on plant-based foods with the occasional inclusion of an animal-derived product. The plant-based milk alternative category is the largest of all of the plant-based foods. As you can see, sales are up 20% in 2020. It's grown 2 times the rate of cow's milk. 39% of U.S. households now buy plant-based milk. In addition, the plant-based milk space now is 15% of the overall milk segment. That's huge. You might note the rapid rise of oat milks in the past 2 years. One driver of growth in the plant-based segment is consumer awareness of the CO2 footprint reduction that plant-based products offer versus traditional full-fat dairy milk. And lastly, there is a growing awareness with consumers of sustainability and product ingredient knowledge. It seems everyone reads the ingredient statements and nutrition facts on the foods they buy these days. So how does one go about actually making an oat-based beverage product? Let's explore the process and the various functional ingredients that go into making oat-based milk products. So today, let's look at how an oat-based beverage is produced. And first I want to say this is a very high-level explanation of how you go about producing an oat-based beverage. Not every plant is the same, not everybody's equipment is the same, time, temperature, they all can vary within a plant. So this is just a high-level explanation. It all starts with oats or oat flour, water, and enzymes. Enzymes play a critical role in the manufacture of oat-based beverages. They have the unique ability to quickly hydrolyze various components of oats. This allows the producer to efficiently create a consistent, high-quality oat-based finished product. So let's have a look at a typical production scenario. A typical manufacturing process of an oat-based product would look much like this. Heat-treated oat flour is mixed with water and heated. Enzymes are added to reduce viscosity by hydrolyzing the starch. The product is cooled somewhat, and enzymes are again added to convert the hydrolyzed starch into sugars. The product solids are then separated by decanting or by centrifuging. Once the separation step occurs, the beverage is ready to formulate according to your product's requirements. Additional ingredients are added, usually followed by homogenization, thermal processing, and packaging. This picture shows how the addition of enzymes helps to reduce the viscosity of the heated oat slurry and begins hydrolyzing the starch. The addition of enzymes is done in 2 main processing steps. The first is called liquefaction. The slurry is heated, the starch gels, viscosity builds, and the addition of an alpha amylase at this point will begin converting the amylose and amylopectin into dextrins and amylopectin fragments. This helps to reduce the viscosity and to break down the starch. The second step is called saccharification. It's done at a somewhat lower temperature, and the addition of a glucoamylase takes the dextrins and amylose fragments and breaks them down into glucose and glucose isomaltose. This increases the dextrose equivalence, gives better mouthfeel, produces natural sweetness, and reduces the need for added sugars. Here you can see how the use of enzymes can increase or decrease the product sweetness by dosing the right enzymes at the right time. All enzymes must be inactivated at some point or they will continue to function forever. Inactivation is typically done by thermal inactivation. Each enzyme has its own inactivation temperature. Finally, one final note about the role of enzymes is that they can help to increase the solubility of proteins, and in the case of oats, beta-glucans, which can increase yields. So now let's jump into our review of some of the oat-based dairy alternatives on the market today. The oat-based milk alternatives on the market today run the range from unsweetened, plain oat milk all the way up to highly sweetened, highly flavored coffee creamers. Mike went to the store, bought 5 different brands of unsweetened plain oat milk, and we're going to have a look at those today. We'll talk a little bit about some of the attributes that we feel are in each of them, and then what they're coming from, and see where we go.
Awesome. So we're going to start out over here.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Well, the first one we're looking at is Original Oatly Oat Milk. I notice on the glass, not on the glass, sorry, on the carton it says shake well. They want you to shake it for some reason, because they want it to be uniform.
Right. Sometimes we get some settling in some of these, and sometimes the ingredients might, separate within the beverage, and you just want to make sure that it's nice and even and mixed thoroughly.
I noticed that there's calcium carbonate in this product, which is an insoluble form of calcium, and I'm sure that has something to do with why they want you to shake it up.
Very smart. Now, one thing I noticed when tasting is about, as far as the creaminess and fattiness, I'd say it's a little lower. It's a little more what I would consider like a skim or 1% milk kind of texture in my mouth, which is perfectly fine. That was another thing that we wanted to talk about, is we are not evaluating these one's better than the other. No. We're just simply seeing what's out in the marketplace. So I do notice that it's a little, I wouldn't say watery, but not as, let's say, doesn't have as much of that fattiness as, some of the other ones I've tasted before.
Totally agree. And I picked up a little bit of a nutty flavor, very so slightly. Yeah, and that can come from the oats. And sometimes in tasting these, I've noticed that exists in all of them to some degree. A lot of that has to do with the processing parameters that they've been put through.
And assuming since it's all oat milk, that is why we're going to taste a little bit of oat and some of those notes in there. So it's still very tasty, very easy to drink, and I like it quite a bit. So cool. Next one over here.
Califia Farms. This touts 0 sugar. Now, what I did notice is that they use monk fruit juice in the product. So monk fruit juice is a naturally occurring, kind of a high-intensity sweetener, often paired with stevia. So it's got some sweetness, but very, very, very mild.
I would say, yes, it is definitely, again, I'm not comparing better or worse, but it is just a little less sweet than the previous one we tasted there. It's interesting, it does look like it would be creamier and fattier. However, the mouthfeel seems just like on point with what I tried there before, where it's not as, let's say, creamy like a whole milk or a half and half or any of those, but it actually has a little more creaminess appearance compared to the previous sample there.
They tout velvety texture and creaminess.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly hits on that. It also has a little more of that white, classical, let's say, dairy milk appearance, where I think that previous sample had a little off color, which, again, naturally inherent in the ingredient. That's how oats go. So
I also noticed that this did not say shake well. So interesting. There'd probably be some naturally occurring settling in this product too.
I usually shake everything anyway, just because.
I might as well.
Yeah, might as well. All right, next one we've got up here.
Forager organic oat milk. This one does say shake well.
Interesting. That one, kind of sweetness on line with the previous sample, a little less sweet. Yep, a little less sweet than the first. Looks a little less fatty rich, but this one does cling to the tongue a little bit more. I get a little more richness out of it compared to the other ones, which is nice. It is what it is.
And I should point out that none of these 5 are all formulated identically. They're all slightly different, which is kind of cool.
I'm assuming that an oat milk user, so I do drink oat milk, not heavily, might have personal preference on why it tastes and functions the way it does. So once again, neither of these are right or wrong, just is what it is.
It's however they wanted to formulate
They
it.
wanted to formulate it. That's awesome. I'm going to go with this one here.
Check out Planet Oat.
Interesting. So that one so far has been the least sweet, but I definitely get the most creaminess out of this one.
By far, it's the most viscous, has the
Yes.
most mouthfeel or body. No doubt about it. I noticed on their ingredient statement, they list a couple of products, gellan gum and guar gum. They're both hydrocolloids, and they both can lend to body, and the gellan gum also acts as a suspending agent for any insolubles such as calcium carbonate.
Interesting. Yeah, it stays on my palate a little longer than the rest of them. So I think
It's the thickest.
those function as you would assume they would in a product like this.
Again, not formulated like any of the other ones.
Excellent. And the last one we have here.
This is Whole Foods 365 Original Oat Milk Beverage. It was interesting.
That one has very creamy, has some sweetness, but there seems to be a little bit, I get some other flavor in there. Not off flavors, but just kind of a more well-rounded flavor, I guess I could describe it as.
This one also says shake well before opening. So they want you to shake it up. It does have gellan gum in it, which is capable of suspending any insoluble calcium salts or whatever. But at the same time, it's got quite a bit of body, which you can actually get, if you recall what I said earlier, by the amount of enzymes in the process you put your oat flour through.
Interesting. Very interesting. It's interesting that out of these 5, we do have a wide variety of products out there. Then layer on the fact that there are plenty out there with flavor, increased sweetness, if they're using it for, let's say, a non-dairy creamer or whatever it might be, that there are a lot of options out there depending on what a consumer's personal preference is. So I could see why this is an exciting area in the marketplace. There's a lot of variability, a lot of options, especially if you're looking to incorporate oat milk into your diet.
So 5 basic oat milks, 5 very different products. Now let's go back to those additional ingredients again. If you'll recall, I said that you can use different products to make different categories of food products within this category. So you've got the highly sweetened, highly flavored coffee creamers all the way down to your plain basic oat milks. So let's talk sweeteners for just a minute. Sweeteners run the range from high intensity artificial sweeteners, high intensity natural sweeteners, nutritive sweeteners, sugar, high fructose corn syrup. Everybody thinks that's really a bad thing. All the way up to the asulfames, sucralose, all of those of the world. So Univar Solutions carries all of them. Let's talk about fortification. Are you fortifying your product with minerals? Are you fortifying your product with vitamins? We have a full range of all of the calcium, potassium, magnesium, zinc, every kind of fortification mineral you can think of in all varieties of salts. We also have a limited amount of vitamins available to fortify your product with. Texture and flavor. They play a key role. Texture and flavor. Your texture can modify the flavor, and your flavor can modify the texture. Textures can be achieved by various hydrocolloids. Sometimes you might have a very thin product that you want to thicken up, and you want it to have a specific mouthfeel, a body texture to it. We have a full range of all the hydrocolloids that you can add to do that. From a flavor standpoint, we have cocoa powder, we have salt, of course, plays a key role in flavor. We have vanilla and vanillin for vanilla type flavors. So check with us on that. Glad to help you out however you can. And then you're going to need some emulsification and protein protection. If you happen to be adding additional protein to your beverage, you want to make sure that you don't thermally deactivate it or denature it. So there are products that can actually keep the protein from denaturing. We have those. And then emulsifiers. Emulsifiers are what keep the liquid and the oil phases together. So we have a full line of both natural and man-made emulsifiers out there. So the lecithins of the world and also the monodiglycerides, you name it, we have it. So that kind of runs the gamut of all the products that we can go into one of these wonderful products here. And I think we're going to let Chef Mike have a surprise for us now.
Yeah, finally we're going to go have some fun in the kitchen. We're going to make a plant-based milk recipe of our own. I like winging it, so we're going to blend some probably peanut butter cups, chocolate, peanuts, oat milk, and we're going to make something tasty. So
Great.
awesome. All right, we are going to make a chocolate peanut butter oat milk smoothie or milkshake. So what we're going to do is you're going to start off with your preferred oat milk. We're going to add it to a blender like so. The best part about this recipe is you could kind of just wing it. You could put in whatever you so desire. So then I'm going to add a whole bunch of peanut butter as well, like so. More peanut butter you add, the more viscosity it's going to build in your beverage, as well as taste more like peanut butter, as you would expect. Next thing I'm going to do is add some peanut butter cups. Now, I did confirm that these have no animal product in them whatsoever. So if you are trying to make vegetarian or vegan, you're going to want to check that out. And then I'm also going to add a little extra chocolate syrup. Like so. And all you have to do is blend it till it's done. Just like that. Then we're going to make some noise. So I do want to rim my glass with some crushed peanuts. So I'm going to take some peanuts and put them in this bag here. Might need a little bit more. And then take your trusty rolling pin and let out your daily frustrations on the peanuts. One thing you're also going to want to do is make sure your Ziploc bag is just a little bit open to let that air out. I feel much better now. You see we've got a bunch of crumbly peanuts here. I'm going to put that in a kind of a shallow dish, shallow container. Okay, so we've got those peanuts there. We're going to add a bunch of chocolate syrup to this container here. And now our goal. You want a nice and thin layer so you don't get too much on your cup, or else it'll be just dripping with chocolate, which isn't necessarily a horrible idea, but that's all right. Glass is rimmed with chocolate. Glass is now rimmed with peanuts. And then finally, all you have to do is take your delicious beverage. Try to pour it in without disturbing the rim. Give yourself a nice straw. And there you have it. You have yourself a chocolate peanut butter oat milk smoothie or milkshake. You can add ice. You can use whatever flavored oat milk you desire. Nice and cold, however you want to do it. All right, Charles, here is our finished oat milk chocolate peanut butter milkshake. Let us know what you think.
I can't wait.
Now, this is not low calorie, so if you're on a diet, I very much apologize.
I'm going to drink this whole thing.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear. That's great. Thank you so much for joining us today at Univar Solutions' new Solution Center. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we look forward to cooking for you again.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the Innovations in Plant-Based Milk webinar today. We hope you enjoyed all of the information we shared with you on this earlier video and found it informative as you're working on your next big innovative project. So you saw there are many different ways you can formulate your next oat milk, to achieve a particular mouthfeel or flavor or sweetness, or even to hit a particular nutritional profile and requirement you're looking at. And there are many, many ingredients we offer that can help you achieve what you're looking to create. So welcome to the Q&A portion of our session now. I am Lavanya Venkateshwar, and I lead our marketing and technical sales team here at Foodology from Univar Solutions. And with me, I have here Charles Purcell, who leads our application development scientist team, and Chef Mike Harris from our Food Solutions Center in Chicago. So all the three of us have a food science background with extensive R&D experience. We'll be happy to answer any question you may have, whether it's about where the market is heading or any technical questions you have in your product development and commercialization journey. So please add any questions you may have in the chat function on the side. We already have a few questions rolling in, so let's just get started. So the first one we have here is, how can we prevent settling and sedimentation in oat milk? So do you want to get it started off, Charles?
Sure. Hey, everybody. That's a great question, and it's kind of a two-pronged answer, I suppose. The first thing you have to consider is the removal of, there's going to be some solids when you hydrolyze the starch in the oat flour, and you're going to have to remove the solids that you don't want in your beverage. So there's a separation, a filtration, or centrifugation step. You want to make sure that nothing gets through that you don't want to get through that, so you don't have excess material that you have to suspend. But the second thing you want to do is, if you're adding anything that's going to be insoluble in the formulation side of things, you want to be sure that you've got the proper hydrocolloid system to suspend those things. Like, you might use a micronized calcium carbonate because it would not taste gritty that way. So, yeah, but it's interesting that they all said shake well, except for one of them. So even with the use of some hydrocolloid systems, my computer fell. Yeah. They still said shake well. So belt and suspenders.
All right. So moving to our next question, it's more about the texture and mouthfeel. So how can one improve the grittiness and texture of an oat milk?
Want me to answer that one too?
Sure.
I can. Well, I mean, we're all experts here. We can all answer if you need me. Right? Well, actually, you certainly hit on it, that it also has to do with the consistency of the oat flour you're using. So obviously, if it is milled, very finely, you're not going to get the perception of that grittiness as much. There's also, important things like separating the solids with either filtration or a centrifuge to get on some of the unwanted particulate in that beverage out. And then again, if you're adding soluble ingredients, you can either micronized ingredients or just make sure that they're suspended appropriately with a hydrocolloid or something like that. So there's a couple different steps you can do depending on what ingredients you're actually using to make that oat milk base, as well as the final product you're making. Also, I'll just add real quickly that if you were to accidentally denature some of the proteins, you're going to get a gritty taste from that. And that's what you want to, we alluded to that in the actual webinar there, that you want to be sure you protect your proteins from denaturing so you don't get grittiness from that. Nice.
So in the marketplace, people are substituting the oat milks and other plant-based milk instead of drinking dairy milk. And so this is a really good, appropriate question, is how can one create an oat milk with a similar nutritional profile as dairy milk? Especially, we know now that, more younger children are consuming plant-based milk. So how does one go about matching the nutritional profile?
That's a good question. Mike, do you know how to start with it, or shall I just jump?
Yeah, no, I could start us out. So obviously we are using different ingredients compared to dairy milk. So there will be difference in the protein source and fat source and things like that. However, micro and macronutrients, which you are, trying to replicate, you can match that kind of amount of protein, the amount of fat, vitamins and minerals and stuff like that. And one of the cool things is that Univar Solutions has a variety of those ingredients to add. Anytime you're trying to replicate a thing, whether it's a plant-based protein, oat milk, whatever, you are trying to usually replicate the thing you are trying to match. So, there's some great ways to do it with the ingredients that we're actually able to provide.
Yeah, you kind of look at milk and you reverse engineer it, and then you build your oat milk product back as closely as you can or as close as you want to, using the ingredients of choice, the choice of the fats, the choice of mineral fortification, vitamin fortification, all of that. So you just build it back again, but you got to homogenize it.
So Charles, I know that we recently helped a couple of our customers with this. So I'm going to address this question. So this is in from Aaron. Would an oat barista, good form like cow milk product be possible by using just enzymes, that is without adding oils or gums or emulsifiers?
So if you're looking for foaming characteristics there, yes, the answer is yes, because you can hydrolyze plant proteins such that they become foaming proteins. You can do it with, for sure, you can do it with soy. I've seen other products on the market that are also foaming proteins, and they've all been enzymatically hydrolyzed. So you can definitely do it. And you can make it foam as much as you want or as little as you want. Fun question.
And we'd love, if you reach out to us later, and we'd love to help you out if you're looking for particular enzymes that will get you there. The next one is about pasteurization. So is the pasteurization temperature, does it affect the solubility or the sedimentation in oat milk?
It can. Remember in the webinar, I mentioned you need to inactivate the enzymes that they'll continue to function. So you want to be sure that you're bringing your temperature up to the inactivation temperature, and each enzyme has its own unique individual inactivation temperature. So you'd want to check with us on that. Pasteurization, for milk, it's pretty low temperature. You may need to go higher in this case. And you want to also protect your proteins through that whole process too. So whether it's HTSD, UHT, conventional pasteurization, which you're going to go through your refrigerated distribution system, each one of those is going to be pretty important because time and temperature play a critical role in the whole thing. Did I answer that question? I think I did.
And so the next one that just came in is more about on the prep side. So we have Katie here who says she's found when using some oat or almond milks that they separate in hot beverages, and particularly in coffee. So her question is, what causes this? Can it be prevented by adding a little cold water before the heat?
Well, usually creamers separate. Like when you hit it with a hot acidic thing like a beverage, you're actually messing with the proteins in the product. So buffering them so that they are protected from that acid environment when it hits it are pretty key. We have other technical people on the team that have a lot of experience, whether it's with a phosphate-based or a non-phosphate buffer system. You want to be sure that you've protected the proteins. Yeah, not only through the manufacturing process, but actually that's a great question. Once it hits the end product, could be, coffee is pretty acidic. You want to be sure that you're protected the proteins in your oat-based barista cream or whatever, so that they don't feather or separate or break apart once it's in there, because it looks nasty.
That's a really good call out, Charles, because when you are formulating and you're getting your product on the shelf, it may be stable on shelf as is, but you have to think through the end use. How are consumers going to use it? Are they pouring it in their coffee in the morning? Are they using it for foaming properties? And so what is the end use, and formulate towards that. But we do have some options to make the product more stable.
And that's when we were doing some shopping to get oat milks to try. There's also specifically oat creamer callouts, which have a little bit of a different ingredient statement. Again, specifically because it's developed for a specific purpose and function. So I think that's where you might be able to adjust that formula just a touch to handle what application you're using it.
100%.
I'm going to switch to some of the earlier questions about, and this one's about sweeteners. And Charles, you did mention we have a lot of variety of sweeteners in our portfolio, but what are some of the top sweeteners that are used in oat milk today that give it the right amount of sweetness without making the product too sweet?
So sweeteners play a role in several areas and functionalities. Number one, if you're using just a standard nutritive sweetener, say sugar or high fructose corn syrup or any of those kind of things, they're going to give you sweetness and body because they're solids. And if you're not going to use those, you want to have something that's less caloric, I would say. You're going to switch over to some kind of either a stevia, erythritol, monk fruit, like you saw in one of those products, or you might use some of the standard products that are out there like aspartame or ACE-K or sucralose, or if you're going to go with a more natural sounding thing, you'd use a stevia derived product. And each one of those has a different sweetness profile on your tongue. So it matters what else is in the beverage because texture and sweetness and flavor all go hand in hand. But what's too sweet is kind of, it gets into it's kind of judgmental, or it's up to the customer and up to you. So when you're formulating, be sure that you're involving your customer. Say, how sweet do you want it? Do you want it to be sweet once it's diluted in coffee? Do you want to have it sweet once you pour it over your cereal? And what does that sweetness profile need to look like? There are some amazing new sweeteners out there in the stevia family. Those that are derived via fermentation, they're not your grandma's stevia that was straight from the leaf and tasted like licorice or bitter or whatever people, metallic, all those different things. There's some really, really good ones out there now. So we are happy to help you with your formulation challenges in that arena.
So Mike, as you were tasting all of these different oat milks out there, you must have seen, we talked a lot about the, the flavor and the sweetness and the texture, but you also must have noticed different colors in those products. So the question I have here is from Milena is, how does one control the color of their oat milk?
Sure. So once again, a lot of that relies on your oat source. So it could be very much the color of your oat flour, how it's milled, which type of specific oat you're using. So all those certainly can have a factor. If you're doing any kind of heat treating or cooking of any kind, sort of those sugars may brown, and we'll be able to add some color to your product as well. Again, just how we commented in our webinar, that it's very much depending on what attributes you are looking for in your product. So if you want to have that more amber brown appearance, you certainly can choose raw materials that will get you there. And then again, of course, all the other ingredients. Is it high viscosity, high fat? All the other sugars and sweeteners, is their flavor. So everything that you put into that beverage could very much affect the color. So really a lot of it is your oat flour, what color that is, as well as the cooking or heat treating step that gives you a lot of color.
100%. And I don't think I'd mentioned this in the webinar, but we prefer that people start with heat treated oat flour, and the heat treatment actually inactivates the natural enzymes. So you're not competing with some variabilities in nature, but that heat treatment may affect the color of the oat flour. So you got to pick your oat flour carefully.
Awesome. So I think that's about all the questions I see in there. So I hope everyone enjoyed the demonstration and the Q&A portion of this session. So we have another exciting session that is about to start shortly about plant-based meat at 9:30 a.m. Central Time. So please join us for that. Thank you to Charles and Chef Mike for your expertise. And to everybody on the call, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any ingredient needs or just need help with your product development process. Have an awesome day.
Thanks.